What's going on? What's going on, Forest Hill and Everman family? This is your host with the most, Willie Beeman, man. We are back for another fire episode as we continue. This is Ordinary Conversations with Extraordinary People, man. Come and be a part of our community. Come and see what we're doing. 6962 Forest Hill Drive in the beautiful city, man, of Forest Hill, Texas. We got my sis here, Nia Imani, man, as we close out the series, Poetry in Motion, man. It's been great. It's been an amazing time, man, engaging and interviewing with some great people, man. But I won't be before you long, but I gotta give her a solid intro. She's a Fort Worth, Texas and Milwaukee, Wisconsin native, full-time book publisher, writer and book author, conference host, youth director at the Christ Cathedral Church, man. Shout out to Christ Cathedral, man. Founder and creator of When the Poets Pray Conference, Fashion Nova. Y'all make some noise, man, for my little sis, Nia Imani.
Hey, everybody. I guess Willie said it all as far as who I am and what I do. And we can just jump right into some poetry then. See how we're gonna start. We'll freestyle, just open up, have a little fun, get all the little giggles out. November 27th. It's a day on the calendar for most, but it's a day that my life changed forever. The day my brother slipped away, but it's also a day that I've decided that I will give the Lord thanks. It's a day of gratitude. For the first time, I thank the Lord this morning for November 27th. I thank the Lord that he was able to bring my brother home, that he was able to wrap his arms around him and welcome him into his arms. See, so for the first time, I've decided to adopt gratitude, just like he decided to adopt me, just like he decided to adopt my brother when he died on the cross for us. See, that is truly trusting Jesus. That is truly loving our people, and that is truly giving them back to him. All right. Little freestyle to help you get it all out a little bit. I like to do that sometimes. I don't know where it came from. One day I just tried it and it actually worked. Sometimes it doesn't. It's okay. I encourage people to try it, even as just an exercise to kind of open up your mind, get you flowing, see what your voice sounds like, and just kind of find where you are in poetry instead of just adapting to what most people do. So here's a piece that I actually performed for the first time here when you all did a open mic this summer. And I still have not named it, but there's a woman I always wanted to meet. Wanted to tell her I'm scared. She's the only one I can admit it to. Wanted to tell her a few things about what I have been through without her looking at me like she's sad for me. I wanted to tell her, I want to be something cool and not something safe. That I was lying when I said I wanted to be a teacher. I really meant I wanted to be a superhero. Never really wanted to be a hairstylist. I was just good at it. Always had my head in the book. How didn't anybody see me? Of course, nobody saw me. I whispered to myself at night, I want to write the book I'm reading. I want to be in charge of how the story ends. That was the truth. I wanted to be an author. I knew everybody would love my stories. Knew I was too smart to waste it, too hurt to be a teacher. Ain't nobody gonna read no books from a girl like me, though. Girl like me ain't gonna live long enough to write no books. Cancer gonna swallow up that dream. The nightmare's gonna suck the joy out of my success. That'd be lonely. I'm gonna be a procrastinator instead. Because I'm way too good to be just anything. Way too damaged to be anything. Then I met a woman who wasn't my mama. Didn't need to be my mama because mama wouldn't get it. I met this woman. She was battered and bruised like me. She was hidden like me until she was seen. She wrote a book, and she shared the same scars as me. Never read her book. Didn't need to. When you meet a real author, you don't need their book, you read their mind. That is where the real story is. She recognized me, inspired. She knew me. She had been where I had been before. Asked her for the roadmap to get to where she is. She said the GPS won't suit me. Said the instructions wouldn't be the same. She told me I don't really know where I'm going yet until I go back to all the places I've ran away from, and I felt like she betrayed me, this woman. She knew better than to speak of the places we've been to. Knew better than to tell me to go back to the house I lost my soul at. She knew better than to tell me to go look in a mirror. She was right. The only way out is through, and that hurt. It hurt to know the only way I'll ever be a doctor is if I'm the patient first. The only way I'll ever be an advocate for abused children is if I remember how bad the abuse hurt. The only way I'll ever be a therapist is if I face my anxiety. The only way I'll love the skin I'm in for real is if I crawl out of it. She gets it. I don't, but I will. I'll be a doctor. I'll be an advocate. I'm already an author. Funny story. I decided to be a publisher because I wanted to help people tell their stories. But that was a lie. It was because I was too tired of telling my own. Too tired of the stares and moans. Became a ghostwriter because I wanted to hide in somebody else's chapters. Didn't want to sit and read my own. This wasn't about money. Wasn't about climbing the ladder of success. It was about hiding. I have always been the winner at hide and seek. They never find me here. I could stay here forever if I wanted. Get real comfortable. Make a lot of money off half the story. Help a whole lot of people get healed, set free, and delivered and stay stuck. I could, you know. Nobody would know. They wouldn't come look for me here. Because folk don't come look for people like me. They don't know that they need to. But the woman I met is right. I do deserve wholeness. It would be abandoning myself if I don't do the hard things. Even though I've always done the hard things, the trauma is beginning to feel like it was the easy part. Not becoming bitter and instead becoming better was a task, but becoming feels like I'm going to have to crawl out my chest to do so. Feels like I'm going to have to get about my feelings. Feels like I'm going to have to own my feelings. And if you think I'm rambling, I am. The only way out is through. This is how my brain works. The only way out is through. This is my trauma wide awake. The only way out is through. This is me becoming. The only way out is through. I hope this is beautiful and ugly. The only way out is through. I hope it does make you uncomfortable. I didn't come here to give you no pillow. The only way out is through. I hope you do cry. My story ain't for laughs. The only way out is through. Sorry for the people who wanted another love poem. If you listen close enough, it is one. The only way out is through. That's become one of my favorite pieces. I think it speaks for itself. And then I wrote something and just kind of stick with the story for a little bit, see where we go. I was called to the office again. Waiting room, palms sweaty, forgetting how to pray, so I just keep saying the name Jesus. The nurse calls me back and reannounces the diagnosis as if I've forgotten. My legs shake with anxiety and my fingers tap my thighs just to make sure I'm still alive. My soul has left the room. Excuse me, ma'am. Did you hear that? I know what she said. I heard it. I've been in this office 296 times. I think I messed up the count back in the 9th grade. Is my father here? I asked. I'm sorry he's not. Let me check your vitals. I comply. But on the inside, I shrink. Miss Peters, you missed chemotherapy last week. Miss Peters, we can't contact your doctor in Milwaukee. Do you know if you've ever had this treatment? Miss Peters, there's a clinical trial I believe you're qualified for. Excuse me, ma'am. Is my father here? No, baby, he hasn't shown up. He promised me. Here's the facts, Nia. You'll probably die. I don't ask her if he's here. I figure he has to be near. Certainly someone has given him the news. Certainly the potter is molding me. Certainly he is weeping for me. He won't wait until I die like Lazarus. Be sure to tell him don't take his time. Here's the faith. Miss, if I could tell you a story, my father was crucified. Nails in his hands much worse than the scleroderma you diagnosed me with. Thorns in his head much worse than the vestibular migraines. Pierced his side, they hung him there to die. Crucified is much worse than cancer. I was invaded. He was humiliated. In just 3 days, he showed us who's king. He thought about every diagnosis when he died for me. You tell me I won't live. They didn't think he would either. Just give him a few more days. You tell me these extra ribs are unheard of, but his grace isn't. So I'm going to stop asking you if he's here. You'll know when he's shown up. Suddenly, the report changed. He's here. Suddenly, the nerve damage didn't matter anymore. He's here. Suddenly, a surgeon was no longer a needle in a haystack. He's here. Suddenly, the cancer was gone. He's here. Suddenly, the tumor dissolved. He's here. Suddenly, I was restored. He's here. Suddenly, my heart began to beat again. He's here. This surgery is rare. There's only a handful of surgeons who can perform it. He's here. You'll be in recovery for 6 months. He's here. You may have to learn to do everything again. My father is here. The sovereignty of God has swallowed up death for me again. God's dominion has crushed my diagnosis, so I'll tell you, O Zion, don't you go hanging your head now. O Zion, don't you drop your sound. O Zion, worship when you are weak. Praise until you get the report of the Lord. Call for the elders of your church. Ring the alarm and get your mothers on the line. Fall to your knees. Don't you give up on your Father. He is not like man. He is still handing out miracles. Breakthrough hasn't forgotten about you. Healing is making its way to your doorstep. Victory has your name on it. The glory of the Lord is waiting to take over your story. Our Father is here. I learned that being alone isn't the absence of company, but it is the lack of understanding. It is showing up in body, but forgetting what it's like to show up in truth. It is searching for a feeling that doesn't exist and yearning for a person you don't even really miss. It is connecting to anchors that don't hold any real weight, so you are floating in these feelings alone. It's forgetting about the girl you were a day ago and thinking you'll never become again. Forgetting what becoming feels like. Forgetting what it feels like to be valued, not knowing what it takes to be considered adequate, questioning who you are in a season of isolation because everybody can't be wrong. It is telling God, if this is what your success looks like, you can have it all back. If this is what ministry looks like to choose someone else, the more you experience God's favor, the more rejected you are by the world. Over 7 billion people on earth, not one face looks familiar anymore. Not one face softens when sincerity. Not one person feels like a safe place. Holy ground feels like horror sometimes too, huh? Cried out to God. Told him I never felt more alone in my life. Told him it feels like everybody's rejecting me. Told him I didn't quite understand why he brought me here to leave me alone. He said, wasn't it my son I gave up so that you could live? Wasn't it my son who was rejected from birth? Wasn't it my son who was persecuted? Wasn't it my son they left for dead alone? Wasn't it my son they plotted on? Wasn't it my son that was battered and bruised? Wasn't it my son? Have you not heard the good news? The stone was rolled away. He rose on the third day. Wasn't it Jeremiah who was chosen by me and rejected by men, did not bless him? And Hannah, who waited for me for 10 years. What about her? Didn't I remember her? Wasn't it Naomi who lost everyone she loved, and in the midst of her isolation, I let her have Ruth? Wasn't it Joseph who was left for dead by the people who were supposed to love him most? Did I not stay there near them all? Was I not there to make sure they didn't fall? Was I not there to hold them tighter when the world loosened their grips? My daughter, I don't care what they told you. I am near to the brokenhearted. I don't stand by while you cry. I don't tell you to call me Abba to not be healed. I don't tell you to call me Savior to be forsaken and abandoned. I don't tell you to call me teacher to not show you the lesson. I don't tell you to call me provider to not endure blessings. Is it not me who you need? Is it not me who sent the prophet and the promise? Is it not me who crafted your purpose in my hands? I am the potter, you are the clay, and if I am for you, who can be against you? Didn't I tell you that I heal the brokenhearted and I bind up their wounds? And didn't I tell you that I will not leave you as orphans, but I will come to you? You didn't give up. Wasn't that me? The lies didn't destroy you. Wasn't it me? I was here all along. When you left, I stayed strong. I waited for you. Days, months, and years. I know you feel so far away from you. My daughter, my son, be patient. You're finally here. Ready? Those are my 3.
We get some more snaps for that, man. That was amazing. It was amazing. What's up, sis? How's it going, man?
You know, nothing much. Nothing much. It's been a good day. I'm happy to be here with y'all. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Happy to have you here, man, to close out our series, Poetry in Motion, man. It's been amazing sitting down with some dope guests. So we had to end it strong with you, man. Gannett kicked it out for us. Shout out to Gannett Nelson, man. She kicked it off strong.
She's great. I love her. Yeah. Thank y'all so much for having me. I think this is a super dope concept. I love libraries, so it's like whatever y'all want to do in here, I'm kind of down for anyway. But this is dope. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Kind of want to go back a little bit.
Okay.
Share with us your childhood experiences growing up in Texas and Milwaukee. How was that dynamic?
Just the back and forth in general?
Yeah,
like,
whatever,
go ahead and lay it out.
Share.
Okay, so this is probably one of the most confusing things about my childhood for people, and it's so funny. I was born in Texas. My family was actually visiting here, and I was born. We stayed, and we were here probably until I was about 3 years old. Moved back to Milwaukee for 2 years, came back, was here for another 3 years, went back there, was there for 10 years. So I've literally been back and forth my whole life. But Texas is home.
Yeah.
And Milwaukee is kind of what grew me, if that makes any sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
And it's funny now, adulthood, you feel like, okay, now you're grown, but I feel like now I'm completely grown up all over again in my 20s. But yeah, so Milwaukee is where I kind of got my grit, kind of where I just like learned a lot about life in general. It's a rougher area, so my experience were completely different there than they are here.
Yeah,
but it gives me balance for sure.
You mentioned in your early writing days, starting out with songs before you discovered, poetry. How has music influenced the way you approach your poetry pieces?
That's actually a very good question. I love music. I love music, and I think my family is pretty musical. They're all singers for the most part. Like they love singing, even if it's just us all singing in the living room.
No, yeah, thanks.
And it just wasn't really my thing. So I love the way music and poetry continuously collide, and I think I've just like taken advantage of that. I realized I don't necessarily want to do songs. I just thought it was something I had to do.
Right.
And I ventured out and found poetry, and I was like, I'm gonna stick with it here. So how I use music now is if I hear a song and it inspires me to write something, people always think that when I say this, it's like, oh, am I copying the song? That's completely not it. But if I hear a song and it just inspires like something, I play that song over and over again to the pieces that I've written. So typically I sit and just write. I don't have scheduled time, so say if I'm just typing on my phone because the song just came on the car, give myself, it take me somewhere between, I don't know, like, this gonna sound bad. It take me somewhere between like 3 and 15 minutes, and it's like, boom, this is what we got. So that's kind of how I just use them both, I guess.
Okay. Even in the music space, it's a question I'll probably ask when we first started back in October. We interviewed musicians. Mm-hmm. So for you, give me your top 5 musicians that you listen to.
Am I just saying like?
I guess in general.
Ooh. I don't know if I can only pick 5 artists.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Whoever you want to share.
This is controversial, but I absolutely love Beyonce.
Of course.
I love Beyonce, and I'm going to leave it there. I love Beyonce. I love Shaka Khan.
Shaka Khan, okay.
Yeah, I love Shaka Khan. I love Isley Brothers. I love Music Soul Child.
Yes.
I also enjoy rap, so I like Chance the Rapper, Kendrick Lamar, Lil Wayne. I have a crazy mix of music. Yeah. As a Christian, you see, I've named no Christian artists yet. That's terrible. That's terrible. Funny. But I believe that I can chew the meat and spit out the bones. That ain't really my conviction music per se. But on a daily basis, I do find myself listening to worship most of the time. So that looks like Maverick City, of course.
Yeah. I love Maverick City.
That looks like Maverick City. That looks like Elevation. And honestly, whoever the gang put me on, that's kind of what I listen to.
Yeah, I got you. It's funny you say that because I heard that the same response from Lecrae. You know, he didn't even grow up in the church. He grew up in the streets. And so a lot of his influences came from, secular rappers in order to influence the Christian community. So, you definitely got a point with that. In your bio, consider you discover your passion and purpose for poetry at the age of 10. Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to the 10-year-old Nia?
Oh, you got good questions.
Hey, man, I'll try to put them together, man.
I think 10-year-old Nia is a superhero. I think that she didn't know that, and I wish that she did. I tell her to keep going. I tell her that it's going to work, and that it may not look the way that she thought, but it's much better than that. I tell her that there's a space for her as much as there's a space for poetry. 10, I didn't really know my place in the world, and everybody's going to say, like, you were 10. But I have a very big family, and all my siblings are about 8-9 years older, so I was the youngest at the time. And that everybody's in college and having kids and doing all this different stuff, and it was just kind of me. It was after divorce. It was also after the first time I experienced sexual assault.
Wow. So
at 10, my parents freshly divorced. We just moved back to Milwaukee. It was just me and my mom. Going from not really seeing my mom much at all growing up because she was breadwinner. My dad was sick, and that's just kind of how our dynamic was in our family. So we didn't spend a lot of time together. So I tell her that there's space for her, there's space for poetry, that I don't have to, that she doesn't have to conform to what's popular or what's the norm. I tell her to not be so angry. I tell her to write more. I tell her that she'd meet people who would love her, you know. In the end, I tell her that she could start talking now if she wanted to, and that if she decided to be silent, there would be people who would have space for her voice later, and it'll all matter at some point.
That's good. That's good. How is your relationships now, you know, with family, mother, siblings, up and down?
So today's November 27th. Today's the day that my brother passed away in 2021. He was my best friend, my favorite person in the entire world. We were very, very close out of all my siblings. So there's no secret. They know too. He was like mother, father, brother, best friend. He filled in a lot of gaps. When you have a family that big who's also poor, and you're pulled in a lot of directions. And my friends laugh at me all the time because I always say I don't want a lot of kids, because I feel like I stand by this. Everybody doesn't get what they need when it's too many of them. You can't be in all of these places at once. You can't really blame the parents for that either. You know, it's just they're stretched thin. And being the youngest, that's kind of just the stick I got. Not saying that I wasn't spoiled in the sense of like love. I knew my family loved me, but I had a lot going on too.
Yeah.
But when I had a lot going on, so did everybody else, and it kind of just overshadowed that, because you don't expect kids to have a lot going on.
Yeah.
My relationship with my parents is interesting. We working it out. We working it out.
Of course.
And I've just learned to also accept things for what they are. They've done the best with what they had, and I believe that those movie relationships that I always like longed for are not necessarily my reality, and that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely. In your poetry journey, in your creative writing process, do you go by a certain routine or practices that help you get in the right mindset when it comes to, okay, this is what I want to write, this is what I want to approach it?
I actually struggle with like a organized routine, and I feel like that's one of the things that makes me a good writer but also hinders me as a writer. I wish I had more of a balance. So I'm literally the person who is probably at a function writing a poem right now on my phone because I just thought of an inspiration. Or I'll think of a line literally in Walmart and I'll write it down like, okay, cool. And I'll come back to it. Sometimes I don't come back to it. Other times, you know, when those pieces pour out of me, that's just how it is. They're great. And at time being, I can write them very, very fast. But when I've got nothing, I've got nothing. Ain't no like, okay, I'm going to sit down on a Saturday at 10 o'clock. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. And I'm going to put on some breathing music and we're going to make something work. It doesn't really work like that for me. And sometimes that can be frustrating. But for the most part, I am very grateful for the gift that I have where I can pick up my phone and something can get going. But when it ain't like that, it just ain't like that. But music helps, for real. If I find that song and I'm like, oh, no, this is the song that thought came from, I will listen to that song until that piece is done.
Wow. It's funny you say that, man. I kind of approach my ministry the same way. Like, if it's a certain song that's really, really heavy on me, I'm going to play it over and over and over. My wife will tell you, like, man, turn that song on. She tired of hearing it. But
that's me all
I
day.
approach my mom the same way, man. I make sure I understand the lyrics, so when I go out before the people, I can
connect
deliver.
with the song.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like, vital that we don't take the time to, like, check the pulse of whatever we're delivering.
Yeah.
So if I'm not going to just get out with a poem that I haven't introduced myself to, that I haven't been vulnerable with. One of my favorite poets, she said something years ago, Jasmine Man, she said, a poem isn't a poem until you start telling the truth.
Ooh, my goodness.
So I found myself as like, oh, I've had people like, we don't want to bring Nia because if Nia come, it's going to be a sad poem. Or we don't want to bring Nia because if Nia come, it's going to be a Christian poem. You're going to get what you get. You ain't going to come.
Facts.
Because I've truly adapted a poem is a poem until you start telling the truth. I'm going to tell my truth. I'm going to tell the truth. So that's somewhere between my trauma, my relationships, my life, and then the gospel. That's just what it's going to be for me. I'm not a love poem girly. People are like, I have like breakup poems and all the things. And usually when I perform in Dallas, which has been some years now, that's what they want. I give them all the same old work, and that's just kind of it. I stopped giving men too much power in poems. I ain't writing no more poems by nobody. It ain't happening.
Oh, that's hilarious, man. That's funny. Who are some of your, I guess, poets that you look up to or were inspiration in your journey?
Alicia Harris, Alicia Harris. I absolutely love her. Jasmine Mans, Jasmine Sims, Cedric Delhord. Everybody always expects me to say like Maya Angelou and things like that. Let me say something. I respect all the GOATs, right? It's just that it's not necessarily, just like you respect people before you and you respect their legacy, it may not necessarily be what has helped you in your journey. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Or what you've connected most to. There is one poem that I learned 5th grade. I can't think who wrote it right now. My brain is kind of scattered, but it's something that I really, really connected with, and I wish I could think of the name, because I know if I just started saying it, everybody would know it. It's about a poem about being inadequate, and it's like a lot of people have to learn it for rites of passage and like different things like that. That's probably the only older poem that I've like really connected to. I know nothing about Shakespeare. People make those assumptions that doesn't even make sense to me. Yeah, we have no connection, but yeah, I look up to those people. Those are great poets. They're great out here making such a difference in their communities. They're honest, and they're doing the work in their own work. A lot of spoken word artists do not do their own work. It's crazy. I did not know it was a thing, but it's a real thing. So I appreciate the people who are out here telling the stories that are theirs. Yeah, that's amazing. Outside of the poetry space, do you find yourself using your voice in any other platforms to make sure that, I guess Nia's doing all, that God's called her to do? Yes, I'm a youth director, and I know we're going to get into that too. Yeah, that's my thing. I think it's crazy that kids are just kind of the thing right now, and I think it's what I'm going to end up doing for life. That is the thing. Youth ministry, shaping the minds and cultivating their journeys and their faith and being a part of whatever that looks like, hands-on with them. People say children are the future all the time, and they put no hand in the future. Nah, we can't just kind of let them pass us by. And something I tell my team all the time is if we don't get it right in this time period that we have with them, this time period that we have their attention, this time period that their parents are bringing us to them, we're going to miss an entire generation. And we've done it before. You have these different gaps, even like as a church I grew up in, right? I've been there all my life. So you see the different gaps of people who used to be so involved or who used to come and who don't. And it's like the same exact generation. So right now, that's just kind of something that's driving me, something that I'm passionate about, is not missing this next generation. I believe they have a lot to offer. I believe they have a lot of questions. And I believe that my voice is beneficial to them. They listen. They respect my influence. They respect what I have to say. And I take that as an honor. I also am the host of When the Poets Pray. Hey, we're going to get into that too. Annual conference. It's my baby. I love it so much. God has blessed me with something incredible. I believe I use my voice in that. Ministry was a hard thing for me, thinking this is not really going to be my thing. But the Lord, I said what I said. So I'm blessed to be able to take my gift and something I love and passionate about and tie it into ministry, and it works. That's good. I think I'm using my voices in those ways. What do you love most about being a youth director? I think I love, when the kids go off to college or go off to wherever and they come back and seeing their faces light up, seeing me, or them running across the church, or... Also, something that I really like is when they get in trouble. When they get in trouble, and you got that time, it's because it's not just about the fact that they did something wrong. It's about the fact that you give them a chance to get something right. That's good. And I like that in that I got this small window where I got your attention and you vulnerable and you're going to hear what I have to say. And when you 24 years old, you're going to remember what I just said and you're going to apply that to whatever you got now. Yeah. So I think those are the moments I like to craft. That's good. What are some common challenges you face when trying to engage or motivate young people? What is the most common thing that you feel like you see? Ask me one more time. What are some common challenges you face when trying to engage and motivate young people? The influence of the world. it can help you and hurt you when you're trying to get their attention, because everything has their attention right now.
Yeah, I agree.
And there's so much influence that is against not just what you stand for, because a lot of people go back to religion like that's not who we are, that's not what we believe. I believe in kids needing to know what they believe. So you can be a Christian and have different beliefs. You know what I'm saying? Small beliefs. Like some Christians believe that women shouldn't wear pants. Maybe you believe that women should be preachers. Whatever those things are, I think that kids have to have a foundation of what they believe, and you got to take those and kind of expound. And a lot of times they go against their own beliefs, and they don't even know in the decisions they make. Or I think that's probably the most frustrating thing. Like, you can't like believe that all women should have equal rights, and then you out here putting yourself like in this box. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think that's the hardest part. Is like the world come tell them something, and it's like this poor baby. They don't even know what they doing. Like they don't know what they, or even just seeing them make such big decisions at such a young age is. That's a hard one too. It's like, man, you got the rest of your life to decide that.
No, true.
You got
Facts.
the rest of your life.
This question here, has there ever been a time to where the youth has made an impact on you? Because when you think about it, it's always reverse. They look at us being, the leader, the role model, making sure we have an impact on them.
They impact my life consistently.
Yeah.
They impact my life consistently. I think for me, the impact started very young. I have 20 nieces and nephews. Whew. So I've been an aunt since I was 1 year old.
Jesus,
my nephew,
one?
My nephew, his name was DeAndre. We called him Baby Dre. He passed away when we were kids, taking a nap. But so the influence of kids go back very far for me, and I think it's kind of embedded both in my trauma and just in my life, right? Yeah. Kids are always like encouraging you and don't even know. Like Sunday, they sang "Hang On in There."
Oh yeah, it was lit in there.
It's getting me through the week.
Yeah.
It's getting me through the week.
Yeah.
Or they have those moments where they're super excited to go to children's church, and you don't even want to be at church. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dang, okay, you're right. The Lord got something for me today. Like, let me chill out. They have all these different ways that they're consistently inspiring me, consistently just almost like loving you back together. Like, all those times where you've fallen apart, kids have a way of loving you back together when nothing else seems to work. Even when your faith seems shaky. Even when, you just feel a little shaky, they have a way of putting you back together literally with just being happy that you're there. Yeah. Like, those times where you're in a place where you kind of don't want to be present and you are only there so you don't have to explain your absence. Kids have a way of making that presence count. Like, I know you don't want to be here. I know it's hard for you to be here, and they have no clue, but they make it count. Like, they run up to you, they compliment you, they laughing with you, they talking with you, they want to tell you about their day, and it inspires me to really keep going when I really don't have the gas to keep going. Yeah,
I got you. This question ain't in my notes, but how is it working with my brother Darrell, man? I know y'all.
Man, if Darrell, oh man, Darrell's a good teacher. Darrell's a student to the word in real life, and he takes interest in the Bible itself. Like, and I also think he takes interest in the kids. He just also kind of is one of them as well. So sometimes I'm just like, man, these are not your friends. Like, you gotta be the adult. Yeah, so he's learned that balance of cool teacher, but also like respect me. Yeah, like. But he's a good teacher. The teams they're lucky to have him for real.
That's good. Shout out to Darrell, man. I'm proud of his growth, man.
Yeah.
he definitely pulling on me and Montez a lot.
He doing his thing. That's all on y'all.
Yeah, man,
good job to you, for
sure. In regard to your leadership style, how do you create a safe space to make sure that the youth are heard and valued?
This is a good one. You got good questions. This is good. I think something that I continuously embrace and continuously remember is that I am trusted to be their advocate.
That's good.
So I keep that in the back of my head every day. I don't care if it's just pushing for them to like get new materials. Like, I'm their biggest advocate. Yeah. I don't care who I got to go up against to advocate for these kids. And that's just kind of what I embrace. And knowing that is like, nah, by any means necessary. So if it's out of my pocket, out of my time, out of my whatever, it's by any means necessary.
I got you. Let's make it pivot. We mentioned it earlier, but I want you to take us back on how the name and the vision behind When the Poets Pray came to life.
I'm just as confused as y'all are on that. So, I used to doodle something all the time. My sophomore year in high school, I just used to always write When the Poets Pray or Words of a Woman. I used to write it down all the time. I can't draw, but I would write it down, write it in cursive, put hearts all around it. The way people would write down the dude they talked to and their name and the last name, that's how I did with these two names all the time. It kept it in my head. I knew that the Lord had just kind of, I guess I didn't even know at the time that it was the Lord. I thought it was my own creativity. That's funny. But had like put it in my spirit, so I would always just be writing it. But I never knew what it was. But I was patient with it becoming because I knew that whatever it was, I had this strong feeling that it was bigger than me. And that it wasn't something that I was just going to, like, rush out. And I had a real hustle mentality because I was young and, like, helping my moms, getting my own stuff, taking care of myself. So I always had, like, I would take something, flip it into some money. It didn't matter what it was since, like, 11 years old. So I knew this wasn't one of those things, but I didn't know what it was, and I was just patient with it. So Words of a Woman kind of started with stationery. That's my publishing house. And When the Poets Pray just wasn't clicking. So I'm like, dang, what is this?
Right.
And then I thought it was a book, and I thought it was all these different things. I thought it was like a thing of short stories at one point. I thought it was going to be like the Strivers Row. Some poets, they're like a group of poets. I thought it was going to be that. Like, it was none of that. It was none of that. And it wasn't until I started becoming, and I started walking stronger in my faith, and I started getting closer to God, that I was in a place where he could trust me with all that it is. And I still think that he continuously gives me more layers to that. As I grow, as I become, he's like, okay, here's more. You can know this, and I can trust you with it. So it just keeps unfolding. I'm just doing whatever he say. He rocking, I'm rolling.
I'm with it, man. I definitely had a great experience for the first time.
Tell me about it. How was your experience?
Man,
This was your first year, right?
Yeah, my first year, yeah. Of course, we merged with y'all in the beginning of the year. Shout out to Pastor Laura. But, yeah, man, it was dope. It was amazing, man. Yeah, I definitely left full.
This year was hard to do. So, it usually I'm like, I don't really have to hear about people's experience, because everybody's just like, this big, oh my God, it was amazing. It was and like we appreciate that. But this year it's like, no, please come tell me that you had a good time. Please. Because it was hard to do. And I knew when the Lord gave me the theme grief, you can't sell grief. And I'm like, you want me to convince people to buy a ticket to something that is centered around grief. So we have to be real careful in our marketing not to kind of let that cat out the bag. But the Lord is kind and intentional. Like people, a lot of musicians and pastors started passing back to back. And I was like, oh, God, you know what you're doing. Because this is the place where creatives come to be revived. And right now creatives are grieving. And right now creatives are torn. And right now they're struggling in church. The God we trust, you're taking all these people we love who are grounded in their faith. So it wasn't making sense. And I'm reminded every day here lately why the Lord gave us that theme, and I'm grateful. I think he gave it to us not only just for the time we were in, but the times that we're going into. And to hold us up over until the next When the Poets Pray. And I'm just hoping people take heed to the classes, take heed to the worship, and just kind of pull on that when they need it. So thank you for coming out.
Nah, man, I had an amazing time. It's funny you had that as the groundwork, because even in the midst of me being there, I was experiencing the decline of my grandmother. And she just passed, a month ago. And so, it definitely, helped me a lot, to get through it and being around other believers to find strength, man.
That's dope.
Yeah,
That's
it was dope.
I'm glad you got to have that. And my condolences again with your grandmother.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. What has been the most memorable reaction from someone attending the conference? I know you mentioned earlier, like, somebody tell me.
A memorable reaction? I don't know. I've had so I guess I will say my most memorable reaction would probably be looking at my bishop and seeing him like genuinely proud, right? He's always like, he's a dad. That's my dad.
Right.
Like,
But seeing him, he's always proud, and he's always like, telling me that, or, coaching me through things. I'm always asking him questions. We talk about, it's not really much I won't tell him. We talk about everything. Anything that I feel burdened with, I'm going to tell him. Anything I want to do, I'm going to tell him. And he kind of stands behind whatever I want to do.
Wow.
And that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And it's a big deal for Sherman Allen. I don't take it lightly. But creating When the Poets Pray was like, everybody just kind of trying to see where you're going with this. They're like, okay. Like, whatever you want to do. Like, they support you because they love you, but they really don't know what they about to walk into. And I think it was just kind of scary because I, too, didn't know what we were walking into. But I just knew what the Lord had gave me, and I stuck to it. And people just did not know how I was going to make poetry, worship, and prayer work. They didn't really see the space for poetry or just even how the service is going to go. How are you going to sell tickets to this? Is this what people really need? And he had none of those questions, but I know he just was like, whatever she does, I'll be proud of. But seeing his face was like, oh, this what you meant. Like, and it did something for my heart. I absolutely adored that. And he's consistent. So every year he's just like, I'm proud of this, and we talk and we kind of debrief the whole experience. But his reaction is I'm probably gonna say my favorite, and then just like teenagers. Max, for instance,
I know
like
Max.
he was like, no, I'm coming every year. I want to be on the team, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, because his experience last year was incredible. Like he really, really saw the Lord for himself. He really had a good time in worship, and he was just like, I want that again.
Wow.
And that was beautiful for him to say. Like, and then this year I got done, and he had a word for me, and it was so cute.
Wow.
It was so cute. But it was, when I say that little boy, he's
how old is Max?
Max is, 14?
Yeah.
14 or 15, I think 14. He had a God is truly on his life, and he was so accurate, and I was like, you actually right. Thank you. That's probably my favorite reaction, too.
Gotcha. Will there be a When the Poets Pray 2025?
Of course. There will be a When the Poets Pray every year until the Lord says something different. I'm hoping we stick around forever. It is something I love. What I can see is just at some point I probably won't be in it. I'll just be hosting, and I'm cool with that. But I see it growing. I see it developing. And eventually it'll be a When the Poets Pray tour whenever the Lord give us the green light.
Yeah.
Whenever we get those sponsors.
That'll be dope. Yeah.
So if you're listening and you would just like to call and you have something crazy, $100,000 to send us on tour.
Send it.
We'll take it. But yeah, we're excited to see the expansion of When the Poets Pray, however it comes. But we're in the works for 2025 already calling people, already making something solid. Very, very excited about the people who just want to be in partnership with what God's doing with us. It's cool.
I might have to do a mom piece, man.
Yeah, I'm not against that. I'm not against
I'm coming
that.
back, man. I'm coming back.
Yeah,
I'm coming back, man, this year. Let's kind of make a pivot. Take a moment to share with the viewers and listeners on your backstory, I guess, from becoming a publisher.
Oh, okay. So when I moved back to Texas as an adult, I came back in 2018. I could not find a job. And as somebody who has never mind working, that was driving me nuts. I knew that my end goal was I wanted to be a publisher, and I wanted to help people tell their stories and help independent authors. But I always saw it on a larger scale, so I didn't necessarily knew that I had the capacity or even the resources or the wisdom to just kick it off and just do it.
Yeah.
And my stepmom at the time, she wanted to publish a book, and I wanted to publish a book too, and I was like, why not use us as practice clients? I was declined by one of my favorite publishing houses twice. Broke my heart. And I don't even know why they didn't want me, Penguin House. I'm really good. But
how did that feel? I'm pretty sure that was it.
Yeah, that didn't feel good. That didn't feel good. People don't really talk about like the rejections of a thing, right? But
rejection.
It didn't feel good. But it's also so many things that like come with it. How many women? Y'all be surprised at the stuff that people can do or not do. How many women authors they already have. People don't know that that's the thing. A lot of publishing houses only take on a certain amount of women, but men is limitless. So all these different things. How many minority women they're going to have on. So then I had to just start kind of paying attention to some stuff and learning some stuff and doing my own study. And I was like, okay, I won't take it as a rejection. I'll make my own table, and I did.
Facts.
And I'm going to bring as many black women to the table as I can and as many black men to the table as I can. I'm rooting for everybody else, but I'm absolutely rooting for everybody black first.
Yeah.
That's what that's gonna be.
No, I feel you. I respect that, fam. What are some essential functions, I guess, that makes up an effective publisher? What would those things be?
So, I guess having your ducks in a row as far as, like, you can't treat it like a hustle. You can't treat people's stories like a hustle. It's nothing for you to make money off of. This is their story. Empowering your authors. Learning what you need to know. I've worked with people and they're telling me like what people promised them, what they're gonna do, and I'm like, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. Or they're like, they'll give me their book cover. They made me a book cover and it's a flyer. That's not a book cover.
Oh yes. It ain't gonna work.
Oh, that drives me nuts. That is one of the like main things that just genuinely drive me crazy. It drives me crazy. But it's so funny because they be so confident. Like, I want to use my own book cover. Da, da, da. I'm like, okay. Then we get to the end and they send me a flyer for a picture, and I'm like, that's not a book cover. But so now we got to start over. But just knowing your systems, knowing what you want to do, knowing if you're a independent publishing house, if you're a traditional publishing house, if you're a partner publisher, if you're really just a self-publishing agent. Like, a lot of people kind of just like in any other aspect, try to operate beyond their capacity, and I don't do that. At some point I did, just trying to please everybody. In life you can't please everyone. Trying to get every customer, treating it like a hustle because I need the money, or even just trying to, like, oh, I can do this. Like, I have learned what I can't do, I just cannot do. What I can do, I can. If you're my client, you are. If you're not, I will help you find somebody who would love to take you on. So I don't, it's a lot of stuff I used to let people request the craziest things. I used to let people call me at 4 a.m. I used to be super accessible. And it's like, nah, you gonna call me during these business hours.
You gotta have some boundaries, fam.
You gonna get these boundaries. You gonna get these boundaries. And I have to constantly reinforce them, just like anything else. But just knowing who I am and knowing what I provide. So these are the services I provide. I will copyright, I will ISBN, I will get your cover design done, I will edit, I will content edit, I will do all of those things. But when it becomes something outside of what I do, it ain't gonna get done. It ain't gonna get done.
Walk us through, I guess, your editorial process from shaping, I guess, manuscripts to finished product.
It's long.
It's long. Tedious.
It's long and tedious. Editing is not my favorite part, depending on what I'm editing. Is the thing.
Yeah.
If I'm editing my own work, like, did I write this? Because I also ghostwrite. So did I write this? Did somebody else write this? What kind of book is it? You know what I'm saying? Style of book, what we're going for. Because here's the thing with editing, being a partner publisher, a lot of people think a lot of people are excited about their book.
Right.
And they're invested in their book. And their investment goes beyond just their currency. They want to be invested in time, and they want to be invested in skill. However,
I see the long pause.
However, when you've hired somebody to do a job, you kind of just gotta let them do it. So there's parts where you can be completely invested. I want you to tell me what you want your cover to look like. I want you to be excited about your marketing tools. I want you to be excited about your plan, your vision. But when it comes to editing, I kind of need you to let me do that. And I'll get back to you. So some people are like, oh, I think it should be this and not that. And I have to break down that English is consistently changing. Or, that's maybe how you speak, but not how it should be said. Or it may be redundant or whatever. They don't really like that sometimes. But I mark it up a lot. I'm old-fashioned, so I prefer to edit on paper than I do on computer.
Right.
So I get there toward the end, but I like to print it out. I like to red mark it. I like to have somebody else look over after me.
That's good.
That I trust.
Yeah.
Hey, give me a second eyes. Because the thing is, if you've been staring at a manuscript for months, you're going to skip over some mistakes on accident. It's like you're reading it. Like, at this point, you're just reading it. So whatever is in there, you're just digesting. You're not reading to correct. So you have to constantly, like, switch your eyes, if it makes sense, like, consciously. Like, I have to be like, okay, I'm going to start reading this, and I'm not going to touch this for about a week, and I'm going to come back. and then I'm going to look at it with editor eyes. Or right now I'm just reading it because I want to, if I'm editing the story, I have to read it to enjoy.
Yeah.
You know? So then I have to like really, really read. So it's just different. You got to flip it out.
I got you. Do you have any questions out there?
Yes, but one you just answered about the manuscript guidelines.
Okay.
But another one was, do you print picture books?
I do print picture books. Depending on how long it is, they typically are more expensive. And when I say more expensive, I mean per book. So when it comes to the point of you wanting to purchase your books in bulk, that's what we do. And you sell them for however much you want, and they're completely yours. But you think of color and all of that stuff. Printing companies, especially with the economy right now, they're starting to try to, get a little more money out of us. But it is absolutely a possibility.
And you was talking a while ago about the different types of publishing companies.
Mm-hmm.
What kind are you?
I'm a partner publisher.
Okay.
So partner publishers is fancy for like people who don't want to go the traditional route. They need somebody who knows what they're doing, but they want to be an independent author. So you want all your royalties, but say right now you want to be independent, but 10 years down the line, you may want to pitch this to a company. You can still do that with me. It's your book, your money. So you pay me for the services.
Right.
And then we get you your books, and you own everything. So partner publishing, traditional publishing houses make most decisions for you.
Oh, okay.
Even down to your cover.
Wow.
They can decide, we like where you're going, but let's change this. Let's do that. And the story kind of doesn't become yours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They can change your words around. They can decide. They can tell you for poetry books, like, you can only do 100 poems. Say you've already given them 120. They're like, we want 100. 20 of these have to go.
Wow.
Those 20 could really be like the bulk of your story. Like your story needs all of these pages because they've had all these chapters and you've had all of these experiences, and you don't want to leave one thing out. They can say, this is too sad, cut all this. They can say, oh, your marketing is more of you sell. They could tell you like you sell more love poems. You sell anything, and they would tell you to go for that. So partner publishing lets you explore the possibilities of who you are as an author without somebody telling you that first. And it gives you the opportunity to be able to bring yourself to the table, if that makes sense. So create a name for you, create something that people love, and then they jump on and be like, oh, I see this independent book has sold blah, blah, blah copies. We want a piece of that. We want some money. And then they'll come to you with the deal, So it gives you more options. And it allows you to be very hands-on in your process and just to, like, really respect and love literature. You know what I'm saying? Like, people who really love it, it's like, no, I want to see stuff up close. Like, let me in on what's going on. Like, how does printing work? Let's come up with my cover together. Let's sit down and get coffee. It keeps it personal. It keeps it relational. I love it. It's a good option.
It's good.
Just have a couple more questions.
Go ahead.
So, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot.
Yikes. Okay.
With the books that you have published, are there any that you are like, oh, this would be a good movie, or this would be a good TV show?
I was going to get into that too.
Yes.
Man, that's crazy.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to go into writing movies and TV shows.
That's dope.
It's like my dream. So I'm always like, dang, this would be good. I would say I don't have many that kind of grab my heart in a way where I'm like, oh, you have to do this, that I'm kind of set on. But when I do, it's like, dang, this would be good. I have Miss Rose. Her book would be incredible as a movie. It's called A Rose in the Jungle. It's a really good book. It's a really, really good book. I didn't publish my Bishop's book, but I'm going to do his re-publishing, if that makes sense. His book, For Better or For Worse, The Notebook has nothing on it. It absolutely should be a movie. It should be a movie today. It's so good. So yeah, I'm trying to think of some other people who I know. 2 people right now, I'm working on theirs and they haven't finished, so I can't necessarily say theirs, but theirs would be good books. I mean, good movies, good shows. So yeah, they're out there for sure.
That's dope.
They're out there for sure.
And then also, you talked about people who want to do their own cover art for their books. So how do you break that down to them? Be like, this is not what that is. Let's figure out something else.
It's so hard. You just got to know I would say you got to know your client, but kind of that, but also, again, I'm Christian, so I kind of let the Holy Spirit guide me in those things.
Yeah.
Like, because you don't want to offend people. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I've looked at some stuff and been like, no, man. Like, we're not doing that. Also, I want to stay true to the fact that I'm a partner publisher, so I want to hear the hearts of, y'all, but I also want to make sure we put out quality. And then there's some things that printers just will not accept. Like, no, this genuinely just does not fit the guidelines. It's not a matter of I don't like the design. It's a matter of your designer did not do what they were supposed to do. So maybe it's the pixels, maybe it's the dimensions or whatever that's hindering you. Those things, we can't work around that. So I have to just put it to them straight. But what I do now, for the most part, 98% of the time, you're not publishing with me if you're not using my designer. Now, I will give you 2 different people for options. They're both great. So you don't really need to go anywhere else. I think sometimes people too, we put ourselves in boxes because we don't think there's any other option. So I've had some people bring me something. I'm like, this is mediocre. Your book is a lot better. I have somebody who could take this and could elevate this idea. I see where you're going, but they could take this and they could elevate it. And they're like, okay, let's do it. And then they see it and they're like, oh my God, like, this is beautiful. I didn't know this was possible. This looks so good. People love their designs for the most part. And I think that's one of my favorite parts, seeing people go crazy about their cover. So
it's dope.
It's possible. You just got to bring it to them got to put a little sugar on it. Don't worry.
Any more? That's it? All right. You written and published 4 poetry books of your own, correct?
Yes, I
Share
have.
with us the titles of those books and what they mean to you.
Feather in Time was my first book. So that's the baby that got everything started. Feather in Time means it's really just telling my life story up until like 20. So again, it was when I literally first started living by a poem into a poem until you started telling the truth. It was a conversation. I talked about a lot of stuff that I had never openly talked about, and I had to call all my family like, "Hey, so I'm about to write this book. Y'all probably gonna be mad." But I'm gonna still do it. But actually, they responded very well.
That's good.
They were like, "This is your story, and you're at the age where you can do whatever you want to do with it." And then the things I was scared to write, something I tell myself is, if people wanted you to think better of them, they would have done better by you.
Wow.
So I can feel a little guilty when I explain a dynamic or when I talk about a person's character or whatever, and I have to realize that's kind of on them. So that's Feather in Time, kind of just telling who I am, what I've been through, what I've seen. I guess not necessarily who I am, because she was figuring out who she was at the time.
Yeah.
And then I wrote AM, A Heart Bleeding at Bedtime. PM, A Heart Bleeding at Bedtime. AM is the second one that I haven't written yet. But I didn't write because PM is a breakup book. I was in a relationship for 6 years. And I moved here. And we tried the long distance for about a year. That didn't work. And it wasn't really the distance. It was other reasons. You grow apart. We were together young. So, you kind of 14 and 20, you figuring out some things have changed.
Facts.
So things are changing, and I wrote that book just where my heart was in the process. It was a great book. I love the creativity on that one. It's pink and red like Valentine's Day, and then it's like, oh dang, I didn't know this was about to be a breakup book. I have pictures of text messages in it. It's cool. And then I Never Needed a Magician. I published this book and never sold any. It's the weirdest thing.
Talk about that.
I Never Needed a Magician is an incredible book about a person who's just not so incredible. And kind of how I said before that I've stopped giving them power through poetry, and that's exactly what I did. I absolutely could have took that pain and capitalized from it, and then I was just like, nah, I think this was just for me and for what my heart needed to just kind of get over this season. It wasn't really for sale. Everything isn't for sale. You gotta know what's for sale and what's not.
That's good.
And it is a good book. It's a really good book. It's a great book. I've let my friends read it, and people love it. But I struggle with letting that one go.
Yeah.
So I may swing back later on. I just feel like it's so. I don't want to take one season of my life and let people remember me for that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense.
And that's what they do. It makes sense. So I need to be remembered for a whole lot of other things first.
Yeah.
Before y'all remember me for a relationship that did not work. And then I did This Is Where I've Been. This Is Where I've Been is an ebook only. Actually going to make it a physical copy. My hopes is to do it before the end of the year. I really just need to do it. And we're going to redo the cover. But This Is Where I've Been, I wrote that while going through chemo, facing quite a few other diagnoses, really like rejection time, going through cancer and all that stuff when I got sick. I did not go through that with my biological family. I went through that with my chosen family. And it was an interesting time, lots of perspective. It was during COVID. It was
Oh yeah, very.
It was terrible. It was terrible. So I was just very quiet, and I stopped writing poetry. It was also just a time where I was getting back closer to God, and just walked away from an abusive relationship, and just had all these different decisions, you know, or things happening from that, the residue of your last season. You know what I'm saying? So I was coming out of that and just telling everybody where I had been. I've been quiet. I haven't been doing spoken word, or I kind of just like lost that love for a while too. And I was just kind of explaining myself. Not that I needed to, but it felt good.
Gotcha. Where can our viewers and listeners find your material? Or what platforms are they on?
Currently, my website is not up, immature. But you can find me Speaking to Nia on Instagram and Nia Peters on Facebook, and I can get you some materials. When the Poets Pray, you can find merch at our next event. We're not going to just do our annual event in 2025. We plan to do some smaller events where the community can kind of just come out and hang out. So we'll have some materials there too.
Gotcha. I got to ask this one. We mentioned it earlier. If you could publish 4 books based on 4 well-known movies, what would it be and why?
4 books based on 4 well-known movies. Okay. Something sci-fi. I love science fiction, but they typically start as a book. So I guess I can't say that. The Notebook. It's my favorite movie. We're going to say The Notebook.
I think I have seen The Notebook.
Man, that's a good movie. I don't even like love story movies, but that one good. I guess it's a terrible time to tell you I'm not a movie person. Mulan. Mulan's my favorite. I'm going to struggle with these last 2. Something science fiction, because that's just the right thing to do. I love science fiction. I would want to be a science fiction author. But science fiction authors are special people.
Why?
Special people. You got to be a little off to write real good science fiction. So I'll be there, and then I'll be like, okay, this is getting a little too much for me. Like, I'll think of something crazy or have a dream, and I'm like, whoa, that'll be a good movie. I do not have the emotional or mental capacity to write that. Like, then I'm tripping, thinking like this really gonna happen. Nah, they get too close to like the world ending.
Oh yeah.
They know something we don't. It's just so yeah. I don't know the last 2, but something science fiction.
I got you. You mentioned in your bio merging creativity and Christ. What does that look like in a dying world, especially in times that we're in now?
It looks like being bold about who I am and who he is.
Yeah.
It looks like owning my gift and not letting the world kind of define it or make it into something else. I remember, I think it's some kids over there, so I'll be careful, but I remember I was seeing someone who was also a poet, and he was like, you know, if you show more skin or sex sells and da-da-da, and I was like, ooh, no, sir.
Red flag.
All right, no, sir. I'm very, like I said earlier, this you're gonna get what you get, and you're not gonna throw a fit. That's just who I am in general. So it just looks like being very honest about who I am and being very honest about who God is, and I won't compromise.
Yeah, I think that's important.
I won't compromise. I won't waver in my faith. I won't say something just because I feel like it'll get more traction. People have tried to turn When the Poets Pray into so many things.
Wow.
And most of those things are integral. It's not that it's something wrong with them. It's just not that it's not what God gave me. And they're get rich quick schemes, and that's okay, right? If you're just trying to get rich. But the difference between being true to who I am and who he is completely following him, and I can't do that and follow culture and follow the world. Like,
no,
you can't do both. So it's constantly reminding myself, and I mean, not necessarily reminding me, but constantly reminding people that I'm anchored in the gospel. I'm anchored in who I am, and I take that and I use that. That's my only quote unquote leverage, or my only focus or audience, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. Are you working on any, I guess, upcoming projects or events next year in poetry space?
I actually want to do a writer's room before the year's out. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do that. But I want it to be free. I want people to come out. I want to do a few pieces, and I want to teach people who want to know about poetry how to write. Organize session or answer some questions. Just want to make it like fun. We can write poetry, we can write songs, we can write whatever they want.
Gotcha.
But I'm trying to figure that out before the year's out.
Okay, I gotcha. Well, my engineer is telling me it is a wrap. Appreciate you, sis, man, for being on here. This is amazing.
This is good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I learned a lot about you today. We are ending it, man. Our series, Poetry in Motion. This is your host, Willie Beeman, man. We're kicking off our next series next week. Standing on business, man. Entrepreneurship with my guest, Yvonne Herrera, man. She's a licensed therapist, man. So y'all don't want to miss that. Every Wednesday live at 12 p.m., man. We out of here. Peace.